It was supposed to be just another weekend. You know, one of those uneventful stretches where nothing big is planned and the days kind of blur together. But everything changed with one simple conversation, the kind that sticks with you, tugs at your gut, and makes your instincts scream that something isn't right. My high school reunion was coming up. I hadn't been super excited about it, but it was a good chance to see some old friends, catch up, and maybe feel a little nostalgic. I brought it up at dinner, thinking it'd be no big deal. But my husband's reaction? It caught me completely off guard. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. But the way he quietly insisted I shouldn't go, that maybe it was too far, that it'd be exhausting, that we could just plan a nice weekend at home instead, it set off alarms in my head. It wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. Like he was trying too hard to sound casual, like he was hiding something behind that calm smile. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe he just wanted us to spend some quiet time together. But then the little things started adding up. He began acting weird with his phone, locking it more often, turning the screen away from me. He'd smile at notifications and quickly swipe them away if I was nearby. I tried not to spiral. I mean, we all deserve some privacy, right? But something in my chest wouldn't settle. That night, I sat on the couch scrolling through my own social media, trying to distract myself. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. So, out of curiosity, and a little bit of suspicion, I searched his name on Facebook. Just his name. I wasn't expecting anything big. I just wanted to see what he'd been liking or posting recently. What I found. I still can't quite explain the feeling. It was like the ground fell out from under me. There was a photo. A tagged photo, one he clearly didn't know had gone public. It was taken just a couple of days ago. And there he was, standing in the background of a group shot. But not alone. He was with someone. A woman. Familiar. Too familiar. Her arm rested casually on his shoulder, like it belonged there. My heart dropped. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. This woman wasn't just anyone. She was part of my past, someone I hadn't seen in years. Someone who was definitely going to be at the reunion. That's when everything started to click. The way he pushed me not to go, how jumpy he'd been, all the secrecy. Suddenly, it wasn't just about the reunion anymore. It was about trust. About lies. About who he really was when I wasn't looking. And just when I thought I'd seen enough, I clicked on one more tag. What I saw next, well, it changed everything. My hands were trembling as I stared at the screen, heart pounding in my ears. The second photo, tagged by someone I didn't even know, wasn't just some random party shot. It was more intimate. This time, they weren't in a crowd. It was just the two of them, sitting close together at a small cafe table. His head was tilted toward her, laughing at something she said, and she was touching his arm in that overly familiar way again. I zoomed in, hoping maybe I was misreading it. But I wasn't. There was no mistaking it, this wasn't just a casual run-in. I sat there in silence, trying to piece it all together. Who was this woman to him now? And more importantly, why hadn't he told me he saw her? We'd been married for 6 years. We've shared everything, or at least, I thought we had. And here he was, not only meeting up with someone from my past, but clearly hiding it from me. That kind of secrecy doesn't just happen by accident. The woman's face kept flashing in my mind. Her name was Jenna. We weren't exactly best friends in high school, but we were close once. We hung out, shared secrets, even had a few laughs over dumb things teenage girls think are important. But we drifted. No drama, just life pulling us in different directions. I hadn't seen or spoken to her in over a decade. So how did she end up in a photo with my husband? And more than that, why did he act like he didn't even know who'd be at the reunion? I started thinking back, trying to remember if they'd ever met before. But nothing came to mind. I never introduced them, never even mentioned her beyond a quick story or two. She definitely wasn't part of our current circle. So how did they reconnect? Or had they been in touch all along? That's when the doubt really started to creep in. Maybe this wasn't a one-time thing. Maybe this had been going on for a while, under my nose. Suddenly, I was second-guessing every little moment, the late nights at work, the vague explanations, the sudden interest in going to the gym again. Was I just being paranoid, or had I been missing something right in front of me? I didn't know what to believe, and worse, I didn't know who to talk to. If I brought it up to him, he'd know I was snooping. But staying silent felt impossible now. The way he pushed me to skip the reunion, it wasn't just a suggestion. It felt planned. Like he didn't want me and Jenna in the same room for a reason. I looked at the date on the photo again. It was just 2 days ago. 2 days. He came home that night like nothing happened. We ate dinner, watched a show, even laughed about something dumb on TV. And the whole time, he was holding this secret. This whole other side of him I didn't even know existed. I refreshed the page. A new post popped up. Another tag. Another clue. And what it revealed made the whole situation even darker than I thought. The new tag was from someone I didn't recognize, a name that meant nothing to me. But the post it was attached to did. It was a group photo from an art gallery opening in the city, a place my husband told me he'd been for work drinks just last week. That's what he called it. Just some networking, nothing exciting, he said, tossing his jacket over the chair and giving me a quick kiss on the forehead before heading to the shower. But now I saw him in the background again, clear as day, standing beside Jenna, same woman, same subtle closeness, and this time, his hand was resting on the small of her back. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just the photos. It was the pattern. These weren't coincidences. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It felt like the ground I'd built my life on was slowly cracking beneath me. And I didn't know where to step without falling through. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept racing through every little detail from the past few months. How he'd suddenly started taking more calls outside. How he brushed off my questions about his weekend plans. The way he'd flinch when I asked about Facebook, claiming he just didn't like using it much anymore. But clearly, he'd been using it plenty. Just not in front of me. The next morning, I texted my best friend, Mira. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't inside my own head. We met for coffee, and I debated for a long time whether I should show her the photos. But when I did, she went quiet. She kept looking back and forth between the pictures and me, like she was trying to find the right words. Then she told me something that made my blood run cold. I didn't want to say anything, she started, but I saw them. A couple weeks ago. I was at the bookstore downtown, and they were walking out together. I assumed maybe it was someone from his job or some charity event. But now, her voice trailed off. So it wasn't just me. I wasn't overthinking. People had seen them together, and no one had said a word because, like me, they assumed nothing was wrong. Why would they? We always looked happy from the outside. Smiling at parties, holding hands in photos, planning vacations. But now I wondered how much of it was real. And then there was Jenna. Why her? Of all people. She wasn't just a familiar face, she was someone from my past, someone who knew pieces of me I hadn't shared with anyone in years. There was something unsettling about that, about her showing up like a ghost from another life, but this time, wrapped in the arms of the man I trusted most. I started digging. I went back through old posts, messages, anything I could find. The more I looked, the more questions I had. Nothing was adding up. And just when I thought I couldn't be more confused, I found a message thread that hadn't been deleted. A conversation between him and Jenna. What I read in those messages, it left me frozen. My fingers hovered over the screen as I stared at the message thread, unsure if I even wanted to open it. Part of me hoped it was innocent, maybe just small talk, some old friends reconnecting. But my gut said otherwise. I tapped the thread, and what I saw drained every bit of warmth from my body. The messages weren't flirty in an obvious way. They were careful, calculated, like two people who knew they had something to hide. My husband called her J, and she called him M. There were no emojis, no heart-eyed nonsense, but the subtext was loud and clear. They talked about the gallery night, about how nice it was to catch up, and even about how close it came to being awkward. What did that mean? Awkward, if I had shown up? Then came the line that nearly made me drop the phone. He wrote, "Don't worry. She's not going to the reunion." I made sure of that. My throat went dry. The words kept repeating in my head like a broken record. He didn't ask me to skip it. He made sure I wouldn't. And Jenna replied with a simple, "Good. I'm not ready for that yet." Not ready for what? I could feel my heart beating in my ears. This wasn't just about a friendship. This was personal. It was emotional. And it was built on lies, right under my nose. My hands were shaking again as I closed the messages. I couldn't stop picturing them together. I couldn't stop hearing that line. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I couldn't focus, couldn't eat. Every time he texted me, just casual, normal husband stuff, it made me feel sick. Want me to grab dinner on the way home? Need anything from the store? I stared at the messages like they were written by a stranger. I didn't respond. I needed to see him. Face to face. I needed to hear what he had to say when he couldn't hide behind a screen or a smile. But more than that, I needed to see how much of our life had been real, and how much of it was a cover for something I never saw coming. I didn't tell him I was coming. I just waited for him to get home that evening. I sat at the kitchen table in silence, phone on the counter, messages still open, my heart pounding louder with every minute that passed. The sun was going down, casting long shadows through the blinds. It felt like the calm before a storm. Then I heard the garage door. His footsteps. The front door opened. And when he stepped inside, smiling like nothing had changed, I looked at him and realized, he had no idea what I knew. No idea what I'd seen. But I wasn't going to ask him gently. Not this time. Because I wasn't just his wife anymore. I was the woman standing at the edge of the truth, ready to watch it all come crashing down. He stepped into the room, casually dropping his keys into the bowl by the door like he always did. His smile faded the moment he saw me sitting there, not scrolling my phone, not watching TV, just waiting. Still. Silent. Eyes locked on his every move. "Hey, everything okay?" he asked, his voice cautious now. I didn't answer right away. I just pushed the phone across the table toward him. The screen was still lit, still open on the message where he promised Jenna I wouldn't be at the reunion. His face changed instantly, not confusion, not denial, but that split-second flicker of panic that told me he knew exactly what I'd found. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly, like the problem wasn't what he'd said, but that I'd seen it. My voice came out steady, but cold. "You lied. About everything." He didn't answer. He looked down at the screen, then away, as if hoping the silence might somehow fix it. But it was too late for that. I waited for him to explain, to deny it, to say it wasn't what it looked like, anything. But instead, he said something I didn't expect. "It's not what you think," he started, then hesitated. "I didn't cheat on you." I blinked, not sure I believed him, or even cared about the technical details at this point. "Then what is it, exactly? Why are you meeting her behind my back? Why are you telling her where I won't be?" He rubbed his hands over his face and sat down across from me, shoulders slumped. "I didn't want you to know because it wasn't about us. It's about your dad." That stopped me cold. "My dad?" I asked, stunned. "What does my dad have to do with any of this?" He looked exhausted. "Jenna didn't just show up out of nowhere. She's been working at the legal office that handled your dad's estate. She's involved in something he never told you about." The room spun slightly. My father had passed away 2 years ago after a long illness. I had made peace with it, or so I thought. But now, my husband was telling me Jenna, the same woman who'd been meeting him in secret, was somehow connected to my dad's past. She reached out to me months ago, he said quietly. She said she had information that might affect you. About an account, or a document. I didn't know how to bring it up without reopening old wounds. My hands went numb. I didn't know whether to believe him or not. Was this just another lie? A cover for something darker? Or was this the truth, a truth I was never meant to find? And if it was true, what was Jenna doing keeping secrets from me, using my husband as a go-between? Whatever it was bigger than I thought. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about family. Legacy. Secrets that had been buried long before I ever saw that photo. I sat there, stunned. The kitchen around us felt smaller somehow, the air thicker, like everything I believed was closing in. My husband leaned forward, elbows on the table, looking at me like he wanted me to understand, like he needed me to believe him. But how could I? After everything I'd seen, everything he'd hidden. She said your dad opened an account years ago, he said, voice low. Some kind of trust, but the paperwork was buried. She came across it while reviewing some old files. She wasn't even supposed to see it. And that justifies you meeting her behind my back? Lying to me? I snapped. You should have told me. From the moment she reached out. I know, he said quickly. I was going to. I didn't want to hurt you. And when she told me it had something to do with your mother, I froze. My mother? He nodded slowly. There's another name listed on the account. Not your mom. Someone else. A woman neither of us had ever heard of. That hit harder than anything. My parents had been married for over 30 years. My mom passed before my dad, and their life together always seemed stable, solid. And now there was some mystery woman tied to my father's finances. So what? I asked, my voice shaking. You were just playing detective with Jenna behind my back. No, he said firmly. I was trying to protect you. I told her not to contact you until we knew what it meant. I was trying to figure it out first. I wanted to scream. Not just because he hid it, but because the person helping him was Jenna. The one person from my past who could twist a knife without even touching it. I still don't get it, I said. Why her? Why would she even care? He hesitated again. That hesitation, that pause, it always gave him away. I braced myself. She's not just the legal assistant, he said quietly. She's the woman from the paperwork. The one listed with your dad. I stared at him. What are you saying? He exhaled. I think she's your sister. The room went silent. Everything that had happened, the photos, the messages, the secrecy, suddenly had a different weight. This wasn't just betrayal. It was blood. It was family. It was the kind of truth that shattered the ground you'd been standing on your whole life. She didn't know either, he added. Until recently. That's why she didn't want to see you at the reunion. She wasn't ready. And I didn't know how to bring it to you without breaking something. I sank back in my chair, completely overwhelmed. All this time, I thought he was having an affair. And instead, he was trying to connect dots on a family secret no one had ever told me. But just as I felt the pieces falling into place, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Jenna. 3 words. We need to talk. I stared at the message on my phone, those 3 simple words. We need to talk, echoing louder than any conversation we'd had all night. My husband sat across from me, waiting for my next move. But I didn't know what to say. Everything I thought I knew about my life had just shifted. My father, my husband, and now Jenna, someone I hadn't thought about in years, were all tangled up in a secret that no one warned me was coming. The next day, I agreed to meet Jenna. We chose a quiet cafe on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one would recognize us, and we could talk without eyes watching. When I walked in, she was already there, looking nervous but collected. She stood as I approached, but neither of us hugged. We just sat down, both carrying the weight of too much truth. "I didn't plan any of this," she said softly. "I didn't know until a few months ago. I was going through old files and came across a legal document. Your dad listed me as a beneficiary. I thought it was a mistake." I let her speak. I needed to hear it from her, even if part of me still didn't know how to trust her. "My mom worked for your dad's company a long time ago," she continued. "Before you were born. I found letters. Some handwritten, some not so kind. They had a relationship. She never told me about it. I think she wanted to leave the past in the past." "So why reach out to my husband?" I asked. She sighed. "Because I didn't know how to reach you. And I was scared. I remembered you from school, and I didn't want to just drop this on you without warning. I figured maybe he could help." It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it made sense. Messy sense. The kind of complicated truth that hurts even when it's honest. We talked for over an hour. About our childhoods, the version of our dad each of us knew, the things we'd lost. She wasn't trying to insert herself into my life, at least, not in a pushy way. She just wanted closure. Maybe even connection, if I was open to it. I wasn't sure yet. But I didn't feel angry anymore. Just sad. And strangely curious. When I got home, my husband was waiting, his eyes cautious but hopeful. We talked again, this time with less tension. I told him everything Jenna said. He apologized, truly, this time, for keeping it from me. And even though trust doesn't rebuild overnight, I saw in his face that he wanted to make it right. We had a long way to go, but at least we were facing the truth together now. The reunion came and went without me. But in a way, I had my own reunion, not with old classmates, but with a version of my past I never knew existed. A version that hurt, confused me, but also opened a door I didn't know I needed. Sometimes, the people who disappear from your life come back for a reason. Not to stir up pain, but to give you answers. And sometimes, even in the most tangled mess, you find a part of yourself you didn't know was missing. 31.